and welcome to View from the Rock podcast. I'm your host, Ruck Daddy, and I'm here this week with Papa Swappa and Morgie. How are you guys doing this week?
Doing well. It's been a busy week and a half since our last podcast dropped. How about you, Mr. Morgenthaler?
I'm doing great. Just a little lower back issue, but we can take care of that.
What'd you do?
I think I slept wrong and woke up and being 47, just lower back pain, and now just having a few issues, but I'll deal with it.
Sleeping wrong is a cause of a lot of injuries as you get older.
I mean, I might have just rolled over wrong. I mean, my wife thinks when I sneeze I could do it, but
that can happen as well. So, are you taking any over-the-counter medication for that, or?
I am sucking it up and not doing anything.
Well,
Just a little Theragun and
Theragun.
aside from the back injury, how was your weekend?
My weekend was great, just busy. We had basketball yesterday with Swish, same with you.
So did we.
Rowan left for SneakerCon in Seattle, which was a major event, I guess.
So I don't know much about SneakerCon, but I assume it involves shoes.
Yes. And so the biggest thing is there's probably 6,000 to 7,000 people there at the convention center. Gary Payton, Nate Robinson were the guests. They have vendors, and you bring cash only to buy, sell, or trade shoes.
So does SneakerCon rotate sites every year?
I believe so. I think they have SneakerCons in different cities across America.
Sorry, Mr. Rock.
So it's sort of like Comic-Con.
Correct.
In that way.
Is that?
Are there-
I'm not familiar with that. I know of it, but
Well, people have favorite fantasy science fiction characters, and they go to panels where authors or creators of those people will be there to talk about those characters or the life of being an author or creator. But obviously the best part is that people dress up like those characters. So I'm kind of curious, did anyone dress up like a shoe or a Swish?
I didn't ask Rowan, but I know that he spent 5 hours just going to every vendor, looking at all the shoes, and same with my sister and sister-in-law Megan. I know my mom, Grandma Patty, hated it. 5 hours of walking around looking at shoes. But Rowan had a great time. He came home with 2 pairs, some Jordans, and I don't know shoe lingo. Mr. Swap, do you know shoe lingo?
I refer to every pair of Nikes as Air Jordans.
So, Mr. Ruck, do you know, like I don't know the terms.
I have 11 pairs of Air Jordans.
I think the important thing for Swap is that he could turn any shoe into a shoe that could tap along to a song, like a toe tapper.
Well, I wish
We love toe tappers.
Rihanna.
Rihanna's
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up. I found out this week that Rihanna, which I think is actually how we pronounced it the first time, is how you're supposed to pronounce it. I went back and watched a little clip of her on the Ellen show, and she said it's Rihanna. And everyone else pronounces it Rihanna, and they're wrong.
So Rhiannon is the Fleetwood Mac song.
So the only difference is there is an N at the end of her name if she becomes a Fleetwood Mac song.
So Rihanna.
What?
No, for
Rihanna.
yeah, Rihanna.
It sounds really weird now when you say that.
All right. Well,
I can't help that.
so hey, real quick today, just got back from lacrosse. Rowan's first time ever playing, and it was 38 degrees and almost snowed. But I just wanted to say that we have a friend, Mr. Johnston. His son is very good at lacrosse.
He has spent a lot of time on the pitch, cradling. And those are the only 2 terms I know, even though my son played about 7 years of lacrosse. I never really got past the terms pitch and cradle.
I was sitting next to Grandpa Bill and Papa Pat had 100 questions, and I ignored him after a while, and all I heard was middies,
There's middies.
Midfield.
There's attack.
There's
There-
also a crease.
There is definitely a crease,
and then there's markup
which I think is kind of a universal term. That
for
I've e-
playing defense.
Yes. So in basketball, they say D up, and that now comes from the bench.
Which I hate.
I can't understand why that happens.
So, Rock, you will hear teams when we play tournaments, they say D up, D up, D up, and then the crowd goes with them.
I heard that at the district championship game that we were in. We were our student section was yelling that quite loudly.
the
amongst
Seaholm
other
bench, and I think everything comes back to Seaholm at some point in time here on the View from the Rock podcast.
Oh, yeah.
The Seaholm bench was yelling, D up from the bench. Now I know as a baseball coach, if there is any kind of synchronized vocal cheering from the dugout, it's not allowed. You can yell things, but you can't do anything that is synchronized.
So, like back in the day, hey, batter, swing, batter.
Well, now if you're doing that at second base and your coach is Morris Buttermaker, then
That's not a real person.
you're completely within the you're within the baseball etiquette world. You're okay doing that. But if you had 13 guys in the dugout doing that in unison, I believe that under the National Federation of High School rules, that's determined to be not legal.
So, Ruck,
Yeah.
have you ever heard of that name, Morris Buttermaker?
No, that's a fake person.
Not a fake person. Morris Buttermaker is a legendary Little League coach, played by Walter Matthau in the original Bad News Bears.
100% correct.
Oh, so the coach in Bad News Bears, his name is Buttermaker.
Morris Buttermaker.
Is that what he's called in the movie?
I believe they referred to him as
Coach?
So like, is this actually? They didn't just base it on him. Like it's actually him. I mean, an actor playing him.
it is a fictional character portrayed by Walter Matthau. I believe that they referred to him as Buttermaker.
Wow.
And wasn't Kelly the pitcher that showed up on the motorcycle?
Kelly Leak. And I believe he was played by, you might want to fact check this, Mr. Ruckashall. I believe he was played by Jackie Earl Haley.
I can't answer that.
I might get.
I
to
just
at some
know that
point.
he was smoking heaters and showing up with a 80 Kawasaki to each game.
For the young people like me that are listening to this, when you say smoking a heater, what do you mean?
Smoking a cigarette,
Okay,
A long dart.
a lawn dart.
a
Hey,
lung dart,
know-
not a lawn dart.
We're almost 10 minutes into this podcast, and we're still saying hello to each other in our intro. And I think we have a couple shout outs that we wanted to get in there before we move on to our first topic of the day.
Yeah, a couple shout outs. Tomorrow is the first day of spring sports, and we've got two outstanding young men at our local high school who have committed to colleges, one of whom just signed the other day. Jacob Hayes, standout basketball player, signed with Azusa Pacific in California, where I believe his mother played basketball.
Shannon,
Correct. And also Staley Moore, who signed back in the fall with Bellevue Community College, a fine community college, traditional powerhouse here in the NWAC.
now is the Bellevue coach. Is he still? That's the legendary.
Mark Yoshino, and he's been there since I was in college. And now he was an assistant when I was playing at Green River Community College. And so that's, for those of you that don't know me, that's a long time ago. He's been there a long time. And the junior college baseball world is very transient, I think, with coaches. It's tough to make a living doing that. So if somebody can stick that out for a long time, it's tip of the cap to him.
I mean, that's probably 30 to 35 years.
Well, how old do you think I am, Mr. Morgenthaler?
I think you're 50, but you look 40.
Well answered.
Wow. I'm not sure if you deserved that right there. In case you were wondering, Bellevue Community College, their mascot is the Bulldogs.
I want to say that at one point they were not the Bulldogs. I feel like they were a helmsman or a Norseman at one point in time. Does that ring a bell?
That does not ring a bell for me. But also, we look at the neighboring, I'm a Skagit Valley Cardinal for life.
Yes.
And then you have the Edmonds Tritons, correct?
You have the Shoreline. What is Shoreline now?
Dolphins.
Because when I was in college, Shoreline was the Samurai.
So they are the Dolphins now. But real quick, the Edmonds Tritons, a little alumni. We have Colin Resch and John Murphy from the Oregon crew, the TCH,
Always
our
comes
Edmonds
back to the
Tritons.
Oregon crew. Always comes back to the Oregon crew.
So some of the Oregon crew spent some time at Edmonds.
Yep, 2 of them.
I'll be darned.
And what's Everett?
Trojans.
They are the Trojans.
Well, I think I'm going to move on from that. Hey, our first topic today is district and regional recap for basketball. Go.
Mr. Swap?
Well, this is the time of year for high school basketball fans. We've talked about it before. A lot of big excitement, and the last time we met, we were looking forward to the district championship, which was going to be Anacortes and Seaholm at that point in time. They played a great game earlier in the year during the regular season. Anacortes won in overtime. There are those among us who think that Seaholm might be the best team in the state, but the best team in the state doesn't always win a championship, as we all know. But they played for the district championship at Mount Vernon High School last Saturday, so 8 days ago. And how did that game come out, Mr. Morgenthaler?
So Anacortes was the winner. We cut down the nets. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go. I had a game I had to coach. I listened to the fourth quarter, but was getting updates from Papa Pat. And the first off, according to him, the atmosphere was electric. Everyone you talk to, one of the best venues ever. We've talked about that. Ted House, who covers our NWC, same thing, was saying that. We were up 21-10, I think, first quarter. I think what happened is we went zone the whole game, and it changed the whole landscape. I don't think we could have played them man and been able to win that game.
And it sounded like we were ahead a lot of the game by 10, 12 points, and Seaholm would make a little run here or there. But it sounded like it was a great game to be at. And even though it sounds like maybe it wasn't that close, it was a really super competitive game.
Well, the fourth quarter, so when I listened on the radio, we were up 10. Seaholm goes on a 5-0 run. So we're up 5. They have the ball. I think it was Garrison, their post, missed a layup, rimmed out, would have been a 3-point game. Mm-hmm. Davis Fogel gets the rebound, comes down, and it's one of those shots as a coach where you're like, oh, no. And then nothing but net for a 3. We're up 8. And that was a minute left.
Yeah.
That was the game. And then it was just free throws from there on out.
Big swing there. And then Linden took the 3rd seed, so they're the 3rd team from our conference to move on to regionals. Then our regional format here. What do you think of our regional format we have?
I think it's awful.
I agree.
I want to go back to the old 16-team, 4-day tournament where you play guaranteed 2 games. And I don't know if we rank them 1 through 6, 1 plays 16, 2 15. But this, I don't know, has it been 5-6 years now we've done this regional?
Yeah, 5 or 6 years.
Can you explain to me, as someone who doesn't know what the format is, up into the details, how it works and what the consequences of it are?
So when you make it out of districts, the state re-ranks you 1 through 16, and you go to a regional game, and the top 8 from regionals play each other. So 1 plays 8, 2 7, 3 6, 4 5. That game, a winner is a first round bye, and they're automatically in the final 8 in the quarterfinals for the state tournament. Loser is still going on to the state tournament, but they're playing a loser out game. 9 through 16 are, so 9 plays 16, 10, 15, etc. Those teams are playing a loser out game to regionals or to state. So that means that even though there's 16 teams going to regionals, only 12 make it to state. So technically, those 4 teams that lose that regional game, they get the, oh, okay, you made it to regionals, but you're not at state.
You didn't get to go to Yakima.
Yeah.
And then, if I understand right, if you were one of those top 8 teams and you lose, there's 4 of you, and you're going to now play on Wednesday, the first day, against the winners of those other 4 teams.
Correct.
From the bottom 8. And if you don't win on Wednesday,
You're out.
You're out.
You don't get a second game at state.
Nope, you're going home.
So for a billion years, 16 teams would go to state, double elimination. If you lost, you couldn't win it, but you'd get another game. So you're not going to Yakima playing for 68 minutes, then turning around and going home.
And, most districts now, you lose on Wednesday, you're driving home Wednesday night.
Not only does that not make sense when I hear that from the standpoint of kids not getting to go to a state atmosphere, potentially, or fewer teams get to, it also doesn't make sense from the travel aspect of Prosser had to come all the way to Anacortes, and we're going to have to go all the way to Yakima, and there's other teams that had to travel a lot when all of us could just go to Yakima. We could play maybe 2 games on Wednesday, 1 in the morning, 1 at night. I don't know. Is that possible in basketball, 2 games in one day?
No.
But I'm going to give you another great example of what you're talking about. In 3A, Walla Walla has to go to Mount Vernon
On a
Tuesday. And there you really can't get farther apart in the state of Washington than Walla Walla and Mount Vernon. Walla Walla wins, turns around, goes home, has to come back to Arlington on a Saturday. We're always talking here in the education profession about what's best for kids. Is that best for kids?
Well, I imagine that the WIAA board must be made of educators. You would think so, but they must not. It must be a little far removed from the education mindset of us teachers here.
I'm
Well,
sure
and
they
he's-
all spend a lot of time in the classroom.
But if you if you think about the regional tournament, there's regional sites. Arlington was a regional site. Arlington boys qualified for regionals. They played the winner of Mount Vernon Walla Walla in their own gym. So you have a Sweet 16 game where they're playing in their own gym, and Walla Walla has to come back after going to Mount Vernon. So that's not right.
And Seaholm is, what were they seeded?
So for regionals.
For regionals.
So regionals, you look at the top 8. You have Pullman 1, Anacortes 2, Renton 3, Mark Morris 4, Seaholm 5, Linden 6, Prosser 7, R.A. Long 8.
So Seaholm's a 5. So of the 16 teams that make the state tournament, Seaholm's a 5 seed. They go on the road, play Mark Morris, I believe, in Chehalis, which is pretty close to a home game for Mark Morris.
That's an hour.
And
Mark Morris got him by like 12. They were up 10 at half, and it was kind of that way. I kind of thought Seaholm would get them, but I don't know a ton about Mark Morris, except for, we are very good friends or great friends with Mr. Steve Clokey, who's an assistant coach,
longtime assistant down there at Mark Morris.
with Bill Backamus.
Shout out to Steve Clokey.
They're legends. I think he played with you in 1990.
He is a 90 grad, outstanding athlete.
So Mark Morris wins that one. You have Linden, who dominated Renton, beat him by 30.
I watched the live stream of that, and it was like the video equivalent of talking to a neighbor with a soup can connected with a string.
Oh, it was awful.
It was awful.
It was almost like I needed glasses, but I had them on, but they didn't work. So I just took them off.
It did. It was like watching. Remember going to the 3D movies where you'd get the little glasses when you'd go in, and you'd take the glasses off and look at the screen and then get like motion sickness. It
There were-
was like I didn't have my 3D glasses on.
There was a lot of yelling at the Papa Morgie's house during the Renton Linden game.
Because of the feed.
Correct.
Why can't we just get the Anacortes? What the Rock? What would you call our video department here at the high school?
The broadcasting.
Yeah, the broadcast club.
So their broadcast channel is called The Rock, correct?
Yeah, but it would be the broadcast club.
So they
right?
can't can't do that during districts and regionals because of WIAA rules.
And
I
there's
felt like
they
that
have
happened. Didn't we during football season? Didn't they get to do one of those? Like their one at home.
I think when we played, didn't we play Spokane?
West Valley of Spokane. And our high school broadcast team looks like ESPN compared to, well, they do a really good job, but compared to what we watched on that stream from Renton and Linden.
Well, that's kind of where I'm going. Is why can't we just rent our broadcast club out to NFHS Network, whatever that thing is that you watch it on? I assume that's what you're watching on. Most of the time when I go there, it says it's a live stream and there's not actually anything to stream. I feel like that would be a nice little way for the broadcast club to make some moolah.
And our broadcast club is fantastic. but
Amazing.
I don't think that is necessarily unusual. I think that there's a lot of high school kids out there that can do that. And I don't know who was filming the game from Auburn Mountain View High School, but it looked like somebody was.
Well, I
filming
don't
with
know
their
if that's
iPhone.
an NFHS problem, but so when we got back from our regional game yesterday, watching Seahome Mark Morris on the computer was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if it's transferring that from the computer to the TV.
The good news is, and I think this is a byproduct of the COVID era, is you can see just about any high school game now.
I think it's great. So parents, family members out of town, they can watch.
Or, if you're just an introvert like me and you don't want to leave the comfort of your own couch, then you can watch all of that.
Even though you live a 2-minute walk from the high school.
Well, call it 5. But, sometimes you get done with school at the end of the day. And as much as you love all the kids that come to your classroom, and as much as you love all the people that are going to be at that basketball game, I want nothing to do with going to that basketball game.
Sometimes I feel the same way.
You've had 784 conversations during the day, and that's a long day.
So real quick, just to recap from the regional game for our hometown, Anacortes Seahawks. We're lined up to play the Prosser Mustangs.
Mustangs, and I believe famous alum of Prosser is current San Diego Charger. Check that. Los Angeles Charger offensive coordinator Kellen Moore.
Who went to Boise State.
Set all kinds of records, left-handed quarterback.
Shout out to Boise, Zach, and the Melba.
Yeah, that's right.
What is the real name of the burger joint?
Cook's Two-Hole?
Not the Melba 2-hole.
But it was in Melba.
Yes. And all these years I kept telling Zach the Melba 2-hole.
And he didn't correct you.
No, never did.
Well, they raise polite young men in Melba.
What a sweetheart.
So we show up to the gym in Arlington. And speaking of Arlington gym, I like Arlington. I have a few friends there, but their lighting sucks.
Dark.
Oh, it's awful. Everyone's complaining. But anyway, we ended up not pulling that game out.
Sounds like Prosser's tough.
They are. They run a 1-2-2. So for those of you that don't know, just a 1-2-2 zone. They extend the one guy way high above the 3-point line. He was about a 6'6", 10th grader and just had trouble. We just haven't seen that type of a zone all year.
What is the reason that you would run a zone like that compared to a 2-3 or a box and 1?
Just that where you have a long athletic big on the top. So then you've started out with the 1 instead of the 2. So the gaps are different when you're trying to break it. and then they're leaving that 15-foot jumper open, which is right now, everyone says, the worst shot in basketball.
You know, unless you hear a broadcast crew talk about the Phoenix Suns, and then they love Chris Paul's mid-range game. And they specifically will mention that when you get to the playoffs, that's the time where the mid-range jumper is a big deal. Apparently it wasn't this weekend too.
I'm sorry, but for high school sports, you want people taking that shot every time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough shot for kids.
And especially when you get the ball and you turn and there's no one there.
Yeah, that freaks people out.
Yeah, just those analytics these days, right? Say if you're going to take a shot, if it's very far away from the hoop, make it a 3 instead of a 2.
Yeah. So we grinded it out. We cut it. We tied it. We gave up too many easy buckets. It wasn't our night. And then, we tried to grind it back out at the end and cut it to 3, but then had to foul. We only had 3 fouls with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Refs letting them play?
Yes. It was physical. We had one ref from our district, but they just let them play. I think playoff basketball is different. They allow a little more physicality.
So what's that do for the bracket going into the state tournament?
So we were 2. So now we lost that. We're still guaranteed a game in regional or in state. And so now we're playing a loser out game on Wednesday morning at 10:30 against the Enumclaw Hornets.
The Enumclaw Hornets. Now, I believe Enumclaw is right down the road from White River, and they are also the Hornets. Are there a lot of bees down there?
I have never been stung by a bee close to Enumclaw or White River, because it's White River and Buckley.
It is. And how close is that to the White River Amphitheater where we saw the Black Crows?
3 or 4 miles. And it's also about 5 miles from my sister's house. And then Stevie Bang Bang's house is close to there.
And he lives where?
Maple Valley.
Maple Valley.
I have never been stung by a bee in Maple Valley.
Have you ever been stung by a bee?
I have. Only 3 times in my life.
I think I've been stung twice.
Those two, two of the 3 times I was stung, I got one on my foot, and that was like getting stung. I'd rather be stung 20 times in my arm than on my foot.
Because of was it
just
like on
sensitive, and I'm kind of a wuss when it comes to that.
What part of your foot?
Between my heel and my toes.
Well,
right in the middle.
That's a large area.
That covers the entire foot.
Okay. The bottom part of the middle of the bottom of my foot.
Well, I think that's an important detail, the bottom of your foot, because I could imagine stepping on that would be not a great experience.
So there's a difference between a yellow jacket or, let's say, a black hornet.
Tell me more, Mr. Science.
Black hornets, I think, do not lose their stinger.
Oh.
So they can sting multiple times. I think a yellow jacket loses their stinger and they're done after 1.
So what stung the underside of your foot?
I believe it was a black hornet.
Did you step on it?
Yes. At the cabin. Barefoot. So that's partly my fault.
No, that's what cabins are for, though. I've got my beach cabin. You've got your Eastern Washington cabin. There's only bare feet. As the kids these days would say, the dogs are out.
Barefoot.
You got to take your dogs out.
And there's a really close friend of ours that does not like to be barefoot in the sand. Mr. Josh Johnston.
What?
Does not like to be barefoot in the sand?
He does not like to be barefoot at all.
I like that feeling.
We might have to fact check that, but that's 100% true.
Well, I don't think that's going to make it into this podcast episode, but...
So we play the Enumclaw Hornets, and then how would you like to be the number 1 seed Pullman? You have a first-round bye. You're sitting there Thursday, and the Vegas odds makers have you playing the number 2 seed in your first quarterfinal game.
That's not what I would expect if I was Pullman showing up to Yakima. I think that, their regional game, they played R.A. Long. They were down 17, and they played their game in Spokane. I believe R.A. Long is the Lumberjacks.
I believe they are as well.
They were up, 17, 18 points, and Pullman pulled it off. They have a couple good guards. I don't know much about Pullman, but we will.
They're the Greyhounds.
Pullman Greyhounds.
They are the Greyhounds.
Small town. They've done well in the past. I think we played them in the state championship.
I think we did too, and I can't remember
Ty
which
Johnson?
one. Yeah, and I think the other time we were in the state championship was against Clarkston.
Correct.
And are they the Bantams?
That's where your knowledge of high school mascots exceeds mine.
I was thinking they were like a tiger or something like that.
I think they're the Bantams.
I would not disagree with Pat at all on that.
I'm not trying to. I would never dream of doing such a thing.
Well,
but I'm gonna look it up.
While Mr. Ruck is looking up,
They're the Bantams.
they are the Bantams.
What is a bantam?
Well,
Is this part of your oeuvre of things you know?
is it a some sort of a unit of measurement?
Okay, first of all, while I look that up, why would anyone ever name a mascot after a unit of measurement?
So wait, real quick, we play Enumclaw. They played
Renton,
they played in the regional game Ridgefield.
the Spudders.
The Spuds.
Yes.
Okay, so a bantam, which, when you think about it, there's the bantam weight for boxing. So maybe this makes sense.
Yeah.
A bantam is a chicken of a small breed, the male of which is noted for its aggression.
So
Swappy,
is it like,
you get F.
is it like the? So I have a mental image of the little bird in the Foghorn Leghorn cartoons. Was that a bantam?
I could see that being a bantam. I think the important part is I'm going to give you a little credit for knowing it has something to do with size or weight.
Well, I am disappointed in myself.
Hey, I think we have some shout outs too that we wanted to do right now before we head to a break. And if there's anything else you wanted to get in for state, this is the time to do it.
Well, Mr. Morgenthaler, I think that, we have said all year long, and this is an opinion, but it's also one where we are correct, that the Northwest Conference is hands down the best athletic conference there is in 2A state athletics. No question. And we took a couple of hits yesterday.
We did. And with Seaholm and Anacortes losing, but we're both there, you're potentially going to see a quarterfinal matchup between Pullman Anacortes, Mark Morris Renton, and Seaholm Linden.
Seaholm Linden. That is not going to be for the faint of heart. Seaholm has beat them twice this year.
It's hard to beat a team 3 times
It's going to
in
be hard
1
to
year.
beat Linden 3 times.
Yeah. And and then Prosser R.A. Long. I when I look at this on that bottom side of the bracket, I see Linden, Prosser in the semis. I think Linden beats Seaholm if Seaholm can get by that Wednesday game. And then, of course, Linden is in the championship again.
Every
Like, what the frick?
year. And, watching them against Renton, Linden just does things right.
They do. And Roper was there yesterday just high-fiving and just everyone's coming up to him. Oh, that was a great game Friday night. He's just loving life right now.
I see in the top half of the bracket, I don't care who wins that Renton-Tumwater game. Mark Morris is going to beat whoever wins that. I think Renton came in 22-1 record, I believe. They looked absolutely awful against Linden. I think Mark Morris wins that game. I think Anacortes is going to beat Enumclaw and beat Pullman.
I can't wait for that. So that, again, would be a Thursday morning at 10:30.
Yeah.
Anacortes Pullman. I just think seeing them down to R.A. Long by 17, we'll have to see what they do if they play man. If they play man, then we're going to win. I think we can win that game. All those 8 teams are good, and anyone can win any given day at that state tournament. You just have to be battle tested and I think attack the hoop because, the Dome is a 3-point shooter's nightmare.
How much do you think, here's a question for you, how much do you think it matters having played there?
I think it helps a lot. So when you look at those teams, you have Prosser, Linden, and Seaholm. They went there over Christmas break and played each other.
And Linden obviously played there last year. They won it last year.
So you're just comfortable with the Dome. There's dead spots. The background, like just the peripheral vision when you're shooting on one of those sides of those hoops, there's 50 feet behind there that you see.
So you're saying the best way to acclimate yourself to the Dome is having played there because they've got the glass backboards that you can see through. And they got a couple games going on there, and so it's difficult to see what's going on.
I agree. I think that 100%. Going over there during Christmas break and doing that holiday tournament helps.
And it's weird. We were there with the girls a few years ago. It's the previous game ends and you get onto the court and the warm-up's a little bit abbreviated and everyone's heart's racing. And a lot of times, you get you're 2 minutes into the first quarter before you even catch your breath and have your wits about you, and you look up and you're down 8-1, and before you know it, the game's over.
Well, I get nightmares thinking about that game when we were there. I think we got clocked, but
we did.
For those of you that don't know, we lost by 40.
We should have run Bison.
Oh, that's funny.
A great quote that maybe this takes us into a little break here before we move on to the rest of the delicacies that we have planned today in our podcast. Probably applies to losing by a lot too, and that is from Fast and the Furious. And that quote is, "Doesn't matter whether you win by an inch or a mile. Winning is winning."
Winning is winning. And we just had this weekend happen. I had a big issue with my kids' 7th grade team. And my dad gave me a piece of advice that he heard from Ryan Keyes, Mount Vernon legend.
Mount Vernon legend.
There are winners and there are losers. That's it. There's nothing. You're either a winner or you're not. You're a loser. And some people are just born winners and they win. And they don't take to losing very well. In that game, we were losers.
You ready for a break here?
Let's take a break.
All right. Well, I guess you folks will have to decide whether we are the winners or the losers. We'll see you back after the break, and we'll talk a little bit more about our beer of the week and what else we got planned here. We got maybe some top 3 show action, and we're going to talk about most recent concert we've been to. All right, and welcome back to the View from the Rock podcast. We went pretty long. We were a chatty bunch that first part before we got to a break. And so we're going to quickly talk about our beer of the week. It is one that we've talked about previously, Pabst Blue Ribbon, PBR. It is a beer I chose because it has a part of my childhood in it. When I went to Western, it was the beer of choice. It was the $2 pitcher that we got to have. And as I said previously, it just has this sort of sweet, easygoing taste to it. Probably partly because it's 4.8%. Mr. Morgenthaler, or Morgie, he really likes to create the fact sheet when we do some of these things. So he would like me to say that it was established in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1844, but currently is in San Antonio, which I'm now sad to know that because I went to San Antonio in the last few years. That must have been pre-COVID, I guess. Or was it post? I don't know. Anyways, I recently went to San Antonio, and I could have toured the factory, but I had no idea. What else did I miss there? Oh, Mr. Morgenthaler, Morgie would like us to also to know that normally rural rednecks used to drink it. But I think that was before my time because I'm only
So
35.
historically and stereotypically, 70s and 80s sounded like a. Hold on a second. Need to try that. A rural redneck beer. When I think about going up to the Skagit River back in the 80s, there was a lot of PBR consumed. But PBR built a following as a working man's beer, proudly claims to be union made, but the brand was revitalized when urban hipsters like Ruck made the label fashionable in the early 2000s. And I think Mr. Swap, we could call Ruck a hipster.
More than I would describe him as a rural redneck.
I think that there's an interesting crossover. I'd like to see a Venn diagram of urban hipsters on one side and rural rednecks on the other. And I think that those two disparate groups would come to find out they have a lot more in common with each other than you'd think.
So I think when we talk about PBR in a can, are we talking about the PBR Tallboy?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I feel like that's what I always go to. That's my preference. But that's not how I knew it originally. Like I say, it was the pitcher.
$2 pitcher?
$2 pitcher. And, that's not like back in the 90s like you might have had it, but early 2000s, like when us urban hipsters made it popular. Yeah, it was $2. Now, I will say that was from the Up and Up, which doesn't exist anymore in Bellingham. And, that was not a big pitcher.
Would you get a
it was a small one.
Would you get a $2 pitcher at the Black Cat?
If I knew what that was, I
think the Black Cat is a place in Bellingham.
I think you just made that up.
There's some
We'll have
places
to ask
have a
Uncle
lot
Neil.
of some places have a lot of turnover up there. Unfortunately, the Up and Up was one of those, but I do not recall any sort of Black Cat. There was a Green Frog.
I've been to the Green Frog. They have an amazing grilled cheese.
They do. I might say it's world renowned.
It was so good.
What was on it besides cheese?
I only like it with cheese.
So
There, bacon,
You're a child.
tomatoes. There's different. They have like 10 different grilled cheeses, and the Green Frog doesn't exist anymore.
What?
No, I went there with my wife and her coworkers, and I was like, this is the best place on earth to look at finding a grilled cheese. They had like 15 on the menu.
Well, it's also
Amazing.
It's also the rare acoustic bar. So the idea is you'd go there and there'd be someone in the corner playing some sort of acoustic instrument that you could listen to when you're in Bellingham. And
if you're an urban hipster, you can could have gone to the Green Frog, got
Get a grilled
yourself
cheese.
a grilled cheese, listen to acoustic music,
And then go to the Up and Up.
and buy a $2 pitcher of PBR.
well, could, or you're just describing my college experience.
Wow.
So Untapped ranks it a 2.9 out of 5 with about 380,000 views. Untapped, we're still legendary.
I liked, so obviously, no one can see this other than the three of us right now, but I like hearing what Morgie has to say as I see it on the fact sheet and how often it is incorrect.
I'm sorry, 379,000. I like to round up.
Well, and a 2.8 out of 5, not a 2.9. If you're gonna write numbers down, like let's
It was
let's
a
say the number.
2.86.
And you know what? 2.8 out of 5 is pretty low for a beer on Untapped, but I think there's a place for 2.8s out of 5. A McDonald's quarter pounder with cheese probably gets a 2 out of 5, but there's a place for a quarter pounder with cheese. A bag of Doritos probably gets a 1.5 out of 5, but there's a place for a bag of Doritos. A Domino's pizza probably gets a 3 out of 5.
I would say a 1.
But
So-
there's a place for Domino's pizza.
I think Untapped, though, is geared toward craft beers.
I think it's geared towards urban hipsters.
Undoubtedly. I mean, I'm not going to touch on this too much, but you're scratching an itch of mine that my brother and I have debated hotly many times, and that is the idea of the ranking out of 5 system for places you eat, et cetera, from the standpoint of if you like it, you feel like the expectation is a 4 or a 5. But you know what? I like a quarter pounder with cheese. I like a PBR, but it is correct if you're going to really run the gamut. If my favorite hazy IPA is a 5 because it's my favorite, the Pabst Blue Ribbon is probably a 3, and I also like it.
There's a place for 3s.
Yeah,
So I have a new rating system. Tell me what you think about this.
I probably won't like it, but go ahead.
So when just with food, beer, anything, etc., it's a 1 or a 0.
You're either a winner or a loser. Is that what
So
you're saying?
like if you like it and you're going to promote it, it's a 1. If you don't like it, you say it's a 0. So there's no middle ground.
Okay, I'm going to throw you a curveball despite me wanting to move on to our next segment.
I like it.
The curveball is we've just established we I'm speaking for you, a quarter pounder with cheese.
That's
One.
a 1.
Yeah, but you would recommend that to someone else?
If it's a 1, and I mean, I think most people would like a quarter pounder with cheese.
Have
So
you
here-
ever
so-
had a quarter pounder with cheese and you thought, what would this cost if I had the same burger at a sit-down restaurant?
That's a great point. The only issue I have with the ranking system is I don't know that there are very few things that are a 0, which, maybe we need that, but then if you want more detail, you can go to a different one.
Mr. Morgenthaler, give me an example of something that is a 0.
Nice.
Cauliflower, peas.
Cauliflower prepared anyway?
Anyway, I tried cauliflower wings one time.
At Buffalo Wild Wings,
I
they're
don't-
pretty good.
I ordered the wrong thing, and that was a 0.
Well, I think part of that could be the disappointment of you thinking you were going to be nibbling on a chicken
I'm
wing.
just thinking of like if you like it, if we're going into the ranking, it's a 4, it's a 3.5. Would you eat it again? If you yes or no, it's a 1 or a 0. It's just clear cut.
So let me list 5 things and just without thinking about it, tell me 1 or 0.
Perfect.
You ready for this?
I don't know if I'm ready.
Pringles,
1,
Taco Bell,
the last 3 years 0.
Okay, well, I'm going to caveat. Are you going off of Anacortes Taco Bell? Because
There is no more
talk.
Taco Bell here.
Well, I know. It's where Mod Pizza is now. But
That was
a zero.
When I first had Taco Bell for the first time in my life, it was a 1.
A&W root beer,
1,
Oregon Ducks,
0, 0,
Maybe you need to invent a 00 on that scale.
negative infinity.
Mr. Morgenthaler, did you used to teach math? Is that a
No, there's no such thing as negative infinity. Sorry.
Well,
Yes,
there
I
is
taught
when you're
math.
talking about the Oregon Ducks.
all right?
Our
Well,
next topic.
Yep, there we go. Moving on. Next topic is our most recent show or concert that we've been to, and Pop Swappa.
Because we
Take it
talk
away.
about beers, bands, and balls.
Yes,
And
that's
we've
true.
talked about beers now, and we've talked about balls. Now we're going to talk about bands. The last concert we went to. Last concert I went to was middle of December, and it was the White Buffalo down at the Showbox in Seattle. Went down with a few friends. Went to several establishments before the show. Saw the famous Gum Wall in Seattle. First time I'd been to the Showbox. We had VIP seating. And by VIP, I mean it was not VIP. We just had seats where you could sit.
Because everyone else stood.
Yes.
There was like 15 seats.
A lot of people were envious of us, though. And the White Buffalo, I think a young man by the name of L.A. Edwards opened for him. And the White Buffalo is one of my favorite artists. Second time I've seen him, and he's amazing. If you haven't heard of the White Buffalo, I think you should check him out. Mr. Morgenthaler was there at the White Buffalo, so maybe you should choose a different concert.
Just real quick, the White Buffalo was so fun. I mean, again, that was my second time seeing him. I want him to play the Highwayman.
If you're not familiar with the White Buffalo, he's a great big guy with long hair and a beard, deep voice, and just sings some really dark stuff, and it's really fun. And he does a cover of the Highwayman, and it is amazing.
It's amazing.
He didn't sing it though at this one.
He did not.
And you know what? This is a bit of a teaser. We're not going there yet, but he is related to one of your top 3 shows.
For sure.
Morgie coming up here.
Oh yeah, 100%. So the last show other than that I saw was a COVID show that was canceled and then put back, and it was Pearl Jam in Phoenix, Arizona, and we had it set for April 2020.
Right in the heart of COVID.
And so it got rescheduled. We kept our tickets, and I took Merle Schaefer, Zach Hall, and Steve Meyer, and we all met in Arizona. And if you know me, the Pearl Jam is my number one.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. So they played a 2.5-hour set, and one of the local senators there, Mark
Kelly.
He was there, and Eddie brought it up on stage. He said, "Hey, I'm changing the playlist." And all of a sudden, they start playing Black. And if you know me,
You cried.
yes, I did. It was amazing, and just watching Mike McCready play guitar. Every single concert, he plays the song differently, and when they play Black, his solo is different every time. And it was so fun.
How many times have you seen Pearl Jam?
That was my 14th time seeing them. And the first time I ever saw them was 1995.
I've seen Pearl Jam one time, and I saw them in 1992.
That sounds amazing.
I'm old.
Well, I'm going to just throw in my most recent band that I remember going to, or a concert I remember going to. You know, there might have been one in there more recently, but obviously didn't leave an impression on me. The one that stands out most recently was The Darkness, which, if you don't know what that is, it's they took an 80s band, hair metal band, and they put them into the 2000s, the early 2000s, when these urban hipsters were drinking PBR. And their famous song,
I love it.
their most famous song that got them on the board was I Believe in a Thing Called Love. I am not going to do an impersonation of the part of that song that's famous because their lead singer can hit the high notes, all of them, every single one.
When Ruck introduced me to that band, I'm like, holy crap. Like, it's 1980 band in 2007 or
But
2003.
But like maybe more polish. Like
Yeah.
it's all of their songs. Like I can just listen through the albums one after another.
The Darkness.
The Darkness. They had a little hiatus for a while because their lead singer, I believe his name's Justin. Don't remember his last name. He had some problems with the old, I think cocaine, some sort of illicit drug.
It happens.
And he eventually had to work himself through, NA or something like that, to where I think he's in a good place now.
I don't want to do too much of a bird walk here, Mr. Ruck, but when you brought up cocaine, there's a hot new movie out.
Ooh, based on a true story.
Yeah, I think it's called The Cocaine Bear.
Did one of us see that recently, or it's on your list of things to see?
No, it just came out.
Okay.
So we saw the trailer. So, Mr. or Swappy, do you think you can recap what happened?
So
the trailer.
it appears that there's a bear that stumbles upon some cocaine
That fell out of a plane?
into the woods.
So the people that were flying the plane were throwing it out and someone was going to recover it.
And it was recovered by a bear. Cocaine bear.
And I think that that's the gist probably of the real story. But then I think that they've kind of made it into, from what I can tell, almost a horror story
Yes.
of bear goes crazy as if he was on PCP and just runs amok.
So I think a few minutes ago we were talking about how something can be a 2.8 and be completely good for us. I think Cocaine Bear on everybody's movie rating scale is probably going to be a 2.8 out of 5 tops. But if you tell me that you don't want to see Cocaine Bear because it's a 2.8, then I'm going to tell you you are a bad person.
I'm watching it.
I think it's on the same sort of wavelength as Snakes on a Plane. You remember that one?
Yeah, with Samuel L. Jackson.
And so just me being in the history of my family, I've killed a bear.
Okay.
So my cousin Andy and I, when I was 12. So that just takes it to a different level.
Now, was that pelt up in your grandfather's house? Because then I may have seen it.
It's not, that pelt is not.
Okay.
Was that Quaalude Bear?
Nice. Papa Swappa with the zinger. You know, our show, as it approaches the 1 hour mark, probably means that we need to get on to our top 3 shows before we end today's podcast. So do we want to go to a break, collect our thoughts before we do that? Or
I
are
think we should go
good
to a break.
Okay.
you
We'll
want
go to
to-
a break.
Just a quick break.
Quick
Quick
break.
break.
All right.
All right, and welcome back to View from the Rock podcast. And we're here for our final segment. We're going to try to keep this quick. Our final segment has to do with top 3 shows that you can stream. Now, the caveat with that is that they may not have been streamed originally, but we believe you could stream them now to this day. Speaking extemporaneously or a little off the cuff here, I hope that all of us know what streaming service these can be found on. And if we do, try to make sure you say it. Starting us off here is Papa Swappa.
Top 3 shows to stream. You know, I've had a little streaming time lately. And one of these of my top 3 is one that I had yet to watch that I finished streaming yesterday. So I'll go with my top 3. I'm
Whoa.
going to start with,
Wow,
yes.
Really?
Yeah, fresh in my mind.
that's big news. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Go ahead.
Number 3, Sons of Anarchy. This is one of the few times in my parenting career where I got so invested in a show that I sent all my kids to stay with my mom so that my wife and I could binge this show without being interrupted by our children, which, you know, we are good parents. Might not have been while we were watching Sons of Anarchy. You know, there was a lot going on here. We had a season with Henry Rollins. We had a season where they were in Ireland. We had a season, maybe more than one season, with Jimmy Smits. Remember Jimmy Smits?
I mean, it's been 5 years. And you just finished this yesterday?
No, not this one. But this,
season.
I finished my second show yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Sons of Anarchy finished
Yes.
different time. And the other thing with Sons of Anarchy, we brought up earlier the White Buffalo. The White Buffalo did a lot of the music for Sons of Anarchy. I remember one of the great scenes in Sons of Anarchy is when Clay, played by Ron Perlman, good follow on Twitter, by the way.
Great follow.
Yeah, Ron Perlman is getting the tattoos blacked out, and they're playing the Whistler.
Oh.
I have goosebumps right now. That is,
I mean, if you could see Swap right now, I can see the goosebumps through his sweatshirt.
Oh my God. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. Peg Bundy is in this show.
Oh my God.
There's
Gemma.
Gemma. There's a scene where what's the guy's name who wrote the show and then plays Peg Bundy's he's married to Peg Bundy in real life, but he plays a
yes.
character on the show.
I don't remember his name, but he also he wrote and directed the show, and he was also part of the Shield. Like he wrote the Shield.
Do you remember
too.
the scene where the character he played bit off his own tongue
Yes.
instead of becoming a snitch?
Yes.
He like rammed his jaw onto a table in the prison interrogation room and cut off his own tongue.
Yes.
So Sons of Anarchy. Number 2 for me, and this is the one I finished streaming yesterday, and it had been a long time, but True Detective Season 1.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you've finished all of them?
I have not watched all the True Detectives.
So sorry, what season did you
Season
just-
one.
Season 1. So you got Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey.
That's the best one. I'm sorry.
You don't need to watch the rest of them.
That's what I've heard.
Like I say that having not watched the third one, but I watched the second with tall guy from Wedding Crashers,
Vince Vaughn.
Vince Vaughn. You know, I'm not going to say he does a bad job. I think we're just so accustomed used to seeing him in a funny role, and it just wasn't for me.
Season 1, hands down. That's it.
And it's
It's good. It's really good.
it's neck and neck with my top choice. Okay. And McConaughey in that, I mean, he's a pretty boy and all this other stuff. And I used to not like him because all the women like him, yada, yada, yada. I might even have a little man crush on him, let's be honest. He is amazing
All right,
in that
all right.
show.
all
He
right.
is
All right.
amazing
All right.
in that show.
Oh, he's great.
And he is dark and he's crazy. And I've never seen anything like that show. It was unbelievable. And Woody was good in it too.
It's amazing.
I thought it ruined it when they did different actors, or did they just say we're not doing another season?
So I think that was always the plan, was that each season was going to be a different detective in a different spot. Because, you know, you finish that first season and he's kind of played out he's, you know, sort of solved his issues as far as the demons
Yeah.
that are going on for him. So I don't know that you could go any further with his story. So I understand that, but, you know, that's tough then. You've got to really bring it together for your next couple. And that's
Well,
tough
I
to
want
do.
to I want to rewatch it. It's been 4 years.
Yeah, same.
Now that I've seen it, I want to rewatch it knowing what I'm seeing because some of the dialogue in it is unreal.
How about that number one? What's your number one?
I bet that you guys also have this on your list. Best show I've ever seen, Breaking Bad.
I'm not going to tell you mine, but I think it's amazing. Walter White, Jesse, just the
mean,
whole premise.
You know, I don't recommend very many shows to my parents, and I don't know that they would really like it, but I at least plugged it to my parents like, hey, this is one of the best shows I've seen. You know, I don't think that this is really the reason why I like it so much, but there is the education factor involved. Like, he's a teacher. He's had enough. He's got some other stuff that happens, of course.
He has cancer.
Yes.
Chemist.
Yep.
No, it's very violent, and you know, it's not a show obviously you would recommend to kids. But it's a show, and I think Sons of Anarchy was this way too, where it's so violent, but it's also so well done, and the acting is so good. Bryan Cranston.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
He's awesome. And you know, the thing is it kind of a juxtaposition with your True Detective versus Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad was consistent through all the seasons. All the seasons are great. Like, you're always going to have at the end of the final season with a finale, people saying that it was awesome, people saying it was terrible. And I think there's that controversy is around Breaking Bad too. But
It
You
was.
know?
It was. I think it was well done. Like it was well done.
Well, and think
Just
about
the brother-in-law and all the what happened.
all the spin-offs they've had from that. They had the
Better
spin-off.
Called Saul.
So they've got that, and that's one of the best TV shows out there as well. It's not on my top 3, but really good. And then they had the movie with Jesse Pinkman.
They had the movie, and the kid that played. He was a bad guy in Breaking Bad, but he played Landry in Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
Remember that guy I'm talking about?
Yes.
And he was crazy in Breaking Bad.
Well, if you think about the Super Bowl, they brought the Doritos commercial back with Cranston and Jesse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey,
And speaking of Jesse, his real name I don't know, but he's from Boise.
something Paul?
Oh,
Yes,
Maybe?
that's 100%.
you know
I
what?
think you're right.
This would be a good time to move on to Morgie's top
Okay.
3 while I fact check who that guy is.
So my number 3 is Sons of Anarchy. Jax, I love him. Just he told Clay to suck it and just get done with it. And then his mom, the whole thing with his mom and just the wife, and just a great show. Number 2, it was tough. Ozarks.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I think that's one of the best like endings for a show recently.
oh.
I just
Marty
finished that
and
last
Wendy
week.
Bird. I mean, if you look at the first or second episode, I mean, what happened in Chicago,
Yes.
and then they go down and they show up to the Ozarks, and just and Ruth Langmore.
Yes.
So you're hitting on that there's a lot of great characters in there. One of the characters and an interaction they have, I don't think I've ever been more disturbed than I was watching in that show. So just another plug here to say, I think all the shows we're going to say today are not for kids. Should not probably be watched by kids. But what's the person that has the poppy farm? The old lady. What's her name?
Darlene Snell.
Oh, she disturbs me greatly.
Oh,
And that's all I have to say about that. You know why?
You know, when just how she talks.
She's crazy.
Oh, I mean, like you said, but that Darlene Snell. Oh my goodness. See, it just brings me back. We need to rewatch these
I know it.
because it just goes away. But I want to rewatch them all.
And
so
I
now
think-
I'm going to rewatch them.
When you know what happens, you know, it ruins part of it. But when you know what happens, you can go back and appreciate some of the things that you couldn't when you were watching it the first time.
So Ruth's cousin
Wyatt.
ended up, hanging out with the.
The old lady.
More than hanging out. I think
I
they got
know.
married.
Yes. But you think about it on a side note, when I watch that show and I see Ozarks, it gives me flashbacks to college because we played College of the Ozarks in the Sweet 16.
Was that in Nampa, Idaho?
Correct. 1997 national tournament. And we're like, where the frick is College of the Ozarks? And then we found out, oh, Missouri. Is that the technical term?
I think that's how they say it there, but I'm not sure.
We say Missouri.
Yeah.
Tim Starkovich's mom was born and raised in Missouri. She goes, Missouri.
Did she go to College of the Ozarks?
No. But anyway, it was just like, College of the Ozarks.
So, Mr. Morgenthaler, that was one of the great spectator events in my young adulthood, was the NAIA Division II National Tournament in Nampa, Idaho.
I know.
Where as
And-
a student, I could get a $15 general admission ticket and go to every game.
Well, we lost, so they can suck it. College of the Ozarks. I still love that show. Number 1 for me, Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
It is.
And when you have two great minds like ourselves that agree on something,
Oh, that's That's I mean, that doesn't happen very often.
You know what?
So,
Who's the creepiest guy? I hate to put you on the spot here. The creepiest guy in that show.
so the creepiest guy for me is back in the game. He's all around. I don't know his name because it's been a couple years or a year since, but he was the owner of the chicken or the restaurant.
Gus.
Yes.
Mm.
He. Oh my.
That's
goodness.
exactly who I had in mind.
Oh,
He
Mr.
scared the
Frizz.
hell out of me.
and now he's in. What is he in now?
Oh yeah,
Is he in something now?
Yes.
he's in that Kaleidoscope show, isn't he? On Netflix, the one where you don't have to watch the.
Oh
episodes in
yeah,
any
I just
order.
watched him.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh,
What?
it's some sort of
Oh.
new thing they're trying out every now and then on these streaming
Yes.
services where they drop all 8 episodes and they sort of randomize, I think, what episodes show up in the order for you, and they don't number them. The episodes are like blue, green, yellow, red, and you're supposed to be able to watch the episodes in any order. And
Can you tell him swap a little bit about that show?
well, that's about all I know about
Okay.
that show. So that was the little bit I could tell.
Well, can you imagine if they had done that with Breaking Bad? And you remember the scene where Hank figures out that
Walter.
Walter is Heisenberg. He's sitting on the toilet reading a book and he sees the inscription. I can't remember the details. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yes, exactly.
And he looks up and he's like, oh my, you can see the look on his face. Great acting. Walt is Heisenberg.
How about in the desert or that scene?
Where the shootout?
Yeah. Again, we're not going to give out details if you haven't seen the show.
Well, what you're hitting on there is that show has a lot of scenes that are memorable that we think back to and go, oh, that was a great one. Oh, that was a great one. I mean, the one that they had in the Super Bowl ad was a scene that we remember.
It was was it in the motorhome?
It's where they're standing out there and
Oh.
basically like the drug dealer,
Yeah.
wants them to produce more.
Well-
But he wanted more Doritos, I think, in the.
Yes.
Even now, if you're driving anywhere and you're out in the middle of nowhere and you see an RV sitting in the middle of a field,
Ooh.
you're like, they're making meth.
Yeah, or if it's down on Q or S Avenue.
I think it's T.
Whatever. Below R, none of those streets are real. Hey, I'm going to bring it home. My picks are a little different than yours. Surprise, surprise. All the shows that you said, I've seen all of them. They're great. They were considerations for my top 3. I got a little lost in the woods and started texting with my brother, and that did not help me have a clear mind about really what my top 3 is. But I'm just going to roll it out there. Number 3, West Wing.
Ooh.
For me, a big factor was consistency and rewatchability. And I think at this point, West Wing, I've watched 3 or 4 times all the way through. If you don't know what West Wing is, do you guys know what West Wing is?
I do.
You've seen it?
I've seen a couple episodes here or there,
Never watched.
Wow.
but
Well,
it was about the presidency.
yeah. So as you can imagine, West Wing is the term for the part of the White House where the president is. And, it just follows the day-to-day activities of the president. And the thing that was unique about it was the conversational style behind the scenes in the White House. And famous writer who also wrote The Social Network, his name's Aaron something. It was like
Sorkin.
Aaron Sorkin. Thank you. Wow.
Oh,
Look at you, Mr. Morgenthaler.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
baby. That's worth. That gives me.
So that show kind of, I mean, I guess kids could watch it. There's nothing
yeah.
too bad. It was a network TV show. Now streams on HBO. Loved it, but it's like machine gun fire conversation as they're walking through the innards of the West Wing. Loved it.
So was that Martin Sheen
Yes.
was the president?
Yep. And the little known fact about that is that in that show, he's wearing a jacket a lot, obviously, because he's playing president. So you'd be wearing the suit. and he has an issue with his arm that he can't raise it above his shoulder. So when you see him in the show, put that jacket on, it looks real funny. He sort of like throws it over himself like that. And it sort of became a defining characteristic of his character, but it was also sort of a thing he can't do in real life either. He can't bring one of his arms up above his shoulder. Number 2 for me, The Wire.
Ooh,
Have you guys seen The Wire?
some.
So The Wire also streamable on HBO. The thing about The Wire that was impressive to me was its consistency, rewatchability for me, yet each season was different. They focused on different parts of what it was like to encounter drug life in the projects of Baltimore. And so like the second season is the docks. At one point they go into, for one season, the sort of impact of the drugs that are there on the schools, and then eventually on like politics and government. So you sort of see from season 1 all the way through to the end the impact that drugs have on society there in Baltimore. So, goes pretty deep. And number 1 for me is a show that I probably watch at least one episode every week of, and I can quote lines from it, and that would be Seinfeld.
Oh, yeah.
Seinfeld is just,
I know.
That was back in the day when you had to wait a week for the new one to come out. And then for the next week, people would be talking about the last episode.
well, yeah, around the water cooler, which they used to
Yes.
have back in the day.
See, I think when we talk about that, then we go like those type of shows.
The
What's
Office.
the top 3?
Yeah,
Like Seinfeld, Cheers,
MASH.
Matt. Well, not,
Well, but it was a
but
big
like
thing that was
those,
talked
like I
about,
don't put those in.
this category.
Yeah,
But they can
Maybe.
be streamed.
Streamed.
Yeah, I know.
Seinfeld on
So
Netflix
we need
right
to
now.
we need to figure out a way to
because
give.
Seinfeld was like I went to real quick. I went to Australia. I had watched the end of Seinfeld. The end. I get to Australia. They're 3 months behind.
Oh, wow.
And I'm watching. I'm like, oh. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, don't worry.
So
I won't tell you.
So maybe for a future top 3, we talk about top 3 shows that you had to wait a week for.
Because that's different. That changes the whole spectrum for me. too.
Because we can stream these. Maybe instead of top 3 shows to stream, this could have been binge watch.
Well, hey, get back to Seinfeld.
Yes.
So, Seinfeld for me is that show that we all have where it's your comfort blanket. It's the one where you're like, I don't want to invest in a new show. I don't know if it's going to be any good. And I can just put those episodes on anytime I want. The one thing I'll say about Seinfeld is even if you really like it, you go back and you try to watch those first few seasons. I wouldn't say it's bad, but I would say it's not great.
it's the laugh track.
The laugh track, there's a thing with there's a thing with I feel like comedies, even in The Office, I feel like it has this, and Parks and Rec, and also even in Community, and those are like my wheelhouse of comedy shows that I love. The first couple seasons, sometimes at least the first one, they don't know the characters. Like Kramer isn't fully developed in those first few seasons. He's a weird neighbor guy, but he's not zooming through the door and saying crazy stuff. Like, I feel like in these comedy shows, they write themselves into the character, and all of a sudden, what the character is going to say in response to these different things. And that's part of it. Like, you get to know them. Now they're almost your friends, and now they're saying the funny stuff that, we try to say on the podcast and fail to do.
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
It's the same guy.
So
Larry David.
I honestly, I've seen one episode.
Whoa.
So I'm going to start watching that.
It's really
Tonight.
good, but it's for a certain kind of person.
Yes.
But to your point, Mr. Ruck, I remember listening to a podcast about The Office, and if you watch season 1 of The Office, you can see this. The makers of the show decided after season 1 they needed to make Michael Scott kind of nice, where in the first season he had a lot of the same idiosyncrasies, but he wasn't a nice human. And then once he became nice, everything kind of fell into place.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's, I can't imagine what that would be like trying to discover what a character is. The Office would be up there for me, but I don't even think it's the first season that keeps it out of my top 3. I would say as soon as Michael Scott left that, The Office was downhill for me.
As soon as they brought in James Spader, it went way downhill.
At the pool, at his house with the pool.
Yeah, that was weird. Like, how did they decide bringing in James Spader was a good idea?
Oh my God, we could talk about The Office for one night. Like remember when Michael, they went to and his girlfriend, and they went to their house for dinner.
Oh, Jan,
And
Jan,
then there's a TV.
Jan.
And oh my God,
and
was like,
do you remember when Will Ferrell was in it? And what was the name of the guy he played? It was D'Angelo Vickers.
oh my God.
Well, they also bring in another guy who's in Anchorman with Will Ferrell.
No, it's the same guy. He always busts everyone's chops.
Yeah, what's his name in
What's
the
he
show?
bust?
Well, I was going to say
Their
something.
chops?
Yeah.
That's
That's a good choice, Mr.
call.
Morgenthau.
Okay.
what's his name in The Office? Do you remember? 'Cause I know he's Champ Kind in The Anchorman.
Who is it in the office?
I don't know.
Oh, he's a great character, but he is definitely a niche character in all those. Since we're now at the 1 hour and 21 minute mark, it's probably time for us to wrap this bad boy up. You have any final remarks about our shows or anything that we?
Todd Packer.
Todd Packer.
Todd Packer.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Really? That's amazing.
Well, I Googled it.
I know, but just the name, Todd Packer.
I know, and I'm disappointed in myself because I didn't know what a bantam was.
I
And
know.
I had to Google Todd
Hey,
Packer.
guess what? Mr. Moore, Mr. Swap gets F.
So next podcast, we may have a special guest. We're going to have state tournament review, spring sports preview. Might even have an MLB spring training preview.
That would be
We
nice.
could possibly be talking about
Maybe just high school spring sports preview as well. There's a lot of things on the table, and we encourage you to tune in next time to find out.
And our beer of the week,
will be
something that Morgie picks.
it'll be wet and it'll be cold.
It's going to be amazing.
See you next time.